Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you to Leadership Insights with me, Prashant. I start each and every episode by saying thank you to everyone who is giving so much love to this show. There are people who are reaching out to me with feedback on how the show is going and also feedback on what we can do better. So, one of the feedbacks that I have received is to engage the audience more. People who are on this show, all of you, you put the comments in the comment section, and a lot of times there's not enough emphasis that is given to those comments. So, I will make an effort, and that's my promise to you, to bring in more engagement in terms of involving your comments, involving your questions into the show. So, thank you for that feedback. And a request with that feedback is that please do continue to put your comments and your questions. And during the show, I will look at them, and me and Anita both will go ahead and answer that for you. So thank you so much for being here once again. So, continuing our journey of this show, the whole idea of bringing in different people, bringing in different perspectives, bringing in the awareness of leadership, which is very much needed, we have another special guest with us today. Now, the guest that we have today with us is the founder of Exceed Excellence, and she is a John C. Maxwell team member. She's also an Amazon best selling author and has an experience of over 2 decades in consulting, coaching, and training. I'm very excited. There's so much that we can learn today. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let's have our guest with us today, Anita Lawrence. Hi, Anita. How are you doing today?
Hi,
Hello.
Prashant. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. A very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and our conversation with our audience as well.
Absolutely. And Anita, as you would have heard me, there's a commitment that I've made to my audience that there is feedback coming to me, a very, very valid feedback that there are audiences who are giving their time, they're respecting us and being here to learn and engage with us. But I haven't been able to engage with them with their comments, and that's something that's brutally wrong. I should definitely give them the time that they deserve. So what I'll do is in between, whenever we finish a question, we finish a discussion, we'll quickly rush to the comments and we will see what's happening there in the comments. Is that good?
That's great. That's great.
Good.
Let's do
Thank
that.
you. Super. So let's start that and quickly see what we already have there. So we have Kuldeep here who says, hello, everyone. Good evening. Hello, Prashant and Anita. Hi, Kuldeep. Good evening.
Hi, Kuldeep.
Great. We have a LinkedIn user who says, my sincere thanks to Anita Lawrence for inviting me to the discussion. Then we have another LinkedIn user who says, many thanks to Prashant for taking efforts in conducting these sessions. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. We have Kavindra Mann who says, hi Prashant, excited to be in the show with Anita Lawrence. Anita, you're getting a lot of love.
Thank you, everyone.
Great, super. So, as and when we get more comments, we will look into them. Now, getting back to our conversation of leadership insights with Prashant. So, Anita, I understand that you have experience of more than 20 years. 2 decades is not a small experience to have. You have worked with leaders across sectors, you have worked with leaders across hierarchy over these years, right? And what you take a lot of pride in is being a trainer, is being a coach. So, my first question for everybody's understanding is that as a coach, like what is it? What is a leadership coach and a trainer? What do you do?
Okay. Well, I actually reach out to leaders through training and coaching, and I help them. You see, many times leaders come with a lot of challenges which they cannot talk within their organizations. Yeah, they can't
Mhm.
seem to open up and talk to their own leaders because that would put them in a very vulnerable state. And
Mhm.
that's another challenge that leaders have. They're just afraid to be vulnerable because they need to hold up to that image to say, I'm of this position, I need to achieve this, I need to show myself to be super strong and all that. So I
Mhm.
actually help them realize within themselves what's missing, what's great, and I help them increase their leadership capabilities and influence so that they can build greater teams and organizations. So I do this through training, modules that really give them the aha moment, because without self awareness, no leader can actually grow. So that they can
Mhm.
come up with their own customized plans, customized action plan, because no two leaders grow the same way. And we
Mhm.
cannot expect any of our tools or any of our modules to just go forth, and everybody has to apply it the exact same way if you want to grow. It doesn't
Mhm.
work that way. So I want to
Mhm.
help them, customize the action plans in order for them to achieve their goals, their results. And I also help them to see this major thing in leadership, which is everybody wants to know what drives performance. What drives performance? And every organization wants to drive performance. They want each team member, each or department or division to really perform, and they want the teams to be promoting a spirit of excellence in the organization. But what really drives performance? It's the people. It's the people that
Hmm.
drive performance. No matter how skilled we are in our
Hmm.
area of expertise, that's great because that got us the job, right? That's
Hmm.
really important, But what really drives performance? People. But what drives people? Let's go back a little. What drives people? Emotions,
Hmm.
excitement, enthusiasm, motivation, or maybe even fear. Are we driving people with fear that they don't dare speak up when they actually should? So
Hmm.
emotions, whether it's good or bad. So I help people see that, because unless and until we can embrace both elements, people and emotions, right? Unless we do
Hmm.
that, I really don't think leaders can lead very well.
Wow.
You can get by, but my I believe in excellence, a spirit of excellence, which means giving your utmost best. And without embracing the importance and relevance of people and emotions, we won't be able to achieve that. So that's what I do.
Absolutely, Anita. Great. Well said, Anita. What I could pick up from your conversation was, you mentioned the word awareness in the beginning, where you said everything fails without that. Now that's important. That's what you bring forward as a coach. You mentioned those fears that leaders have. You mentioned those boundaries that leaders are fearful to break within the zone that they are in at their workplace, but you create a space where they're able to break those barriers. That's what you do.
Yeah,
Second thing
they
that you
feel
mentioned
safe.
was customization. Yes, they feel safe, and that's very important for us as humans, right? Very well said. They feel safe. Then you mentioned customizations, that you bring up concepts, you bring up solutions, but they're not one size fit all solutions. It might look like one size fit all when we give it, but as a leader, as a coach, when you work with them, you work with understanding of their customization, their needs, of how that profile or that concept will fit into what they need. Now that's a very powerful
Absolutely.
word.
Yeah,
A lot of trainings even fail because that customization is not done. Just, a solution is given and everyone across the organization apply this. It doesn't work, right? As
no,
individuals, we're different. A very
absolutely.
important point that you mentioned. And third thing that was, the master stroke, was that performance is what every organization needs, but what drives performance is people, and what drives those people are emotions. So, as leaders, if we don't understand people as people, if we don't understand their emotions, then we will not be able to drive them right. You also mentioned, are you driving your people by fear? And you also need to understand, are you driving yourself by fear? Is why you're driving others by fear, right? So that's what you bring forward as a coach. And in the end, you mentioned excellence. So name of your organization is Exceed Excellence. I think that is what you believe in, that, with this
Yes,
awareness, with this customization, with all this in place, you make people aware of their emotions so that they are able to lead themselves and lead their people better. Is that right?
absolutely.
Super. I'm so glad that you shared this with us, because this sets the context for us to understand what you do, and our audience would be able to judge, saying that, okay, this is what I want or this is what I don't want. So we need to set that context in the beginning.
Right.
Now, moving forward to a little deeper question, Anita. Now, I understand what you do, and I understand what it does for leaders and the organizations. But why do you do what you do?
Very interesting question, Prashant. Why do I do what I do? I need to go back in time in order to be able to answer this. I need to go back in time. I remember during my teen years, probably 16, 17, I realized that I was very drawn to people. And I realized also that people used to call me, they used to confide in me, and I used to listen. Not for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes, for hours. I would just listen. I would feel what they are feeling. And I would put myself in their shoes and imagine what what would I do if that happened to me? And then I would think, why did they do what they did? Weren't there any other alternatives? What was going through their mind? And this was during my teen years.
Mm,
And I always would think, how can this be overcome? What can people do to overcome this? So as I begin to think about all that, I also learned it for myself. All the things that I didn't go through, I learned it from someone else. What I could have done better if were to go through it in my future. I remember this quote. I can't remember where I got it from moons ago. It said this: learn from other people's mistakes because you won't live long enough to make them all on your own.
Wow,
And I
that's beautiful.
thought,
Can you say that once again? That's brilliant.
yeah, it said learn from other people's mistakes
Hmm.
because you won't live long enough to make them all your own. Which means
Super.
we may not make all those mistakes. We may make
Yeah.
maybe 40%, 60%, because
Yeah.
depending who we're working with, our
Yeah.
family members. But then who says that we can't learn from other
Yeah.
people's mistakes? We may never go through it, but at least we
Mm.
grow in our minds. So I always begin to understand people better. And I realized that my passion was people long before I moved into the training industry in the late 90s. My passion was people. I used to be so excited just talking to people and helping them in some way. So in 2003, when I founded Exceed Excellence, I was already in training before that, but I started up this company in 2003. My vision, right? Exceed Excellence vision, actually, it was birthed because of what I dreamed for the company. It was to see nations of caring organizations, and united families fulfilling dreams. So there's two
Wow.
aspects here, and I'm about both. I want to help leaders in organizations because the masses are the people. The masses are the people. If I can help leaders care for people, the entire organization has a win. If I can
Mm.
help leaders, because they are in authority, there's greater
Mm.
responsibility on their shoulders. If I
Mm.
can do that for these leaders, when they go home, they belong to a family. They will be able to impact their families positively as well. So it's like, a two-pronged thing where I
Wow.
help organizations, but I also help families because they are very important. And many people have come to me because of issues with relationships. And they get affected because of family, and they get affected at work because they struggle with relationships. So leadership is actually influence. John Maxwell said this. I learned it from him. He's my mentor, right? So leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So we are either influencing people towards positive change, towards growth, towards success, or we are influencing them towards stress, frustration, or misery, right?
Mm.
Because status quo is really not the way to go. I mean, that
Mm.
kind of rhymes, right? Status quo.
Is not really the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, it just came. I heard myself, and it's like, okay, that right. But the thing is, I believe in it, and that's why my company is called Exceed Excellence, because everybody
Wow.
thinks they're at their best, but they don't realize their best is yet to come. They don't realize that, and I want
Mm.
people to realize that. I want to bring out that gold in them. Someone once called me a gold digger, by the way. They called me a gold digger, and I said, "Excuse me, why?" And the person knew me for 1 hour during a
Yeah.
virtual training. I was part of a facilitator's team, and another facilitator who knew me for 1 hour said, "Anita, you know what I realized about you?" I said, "What?" "You're a gold digger," and I'm like, "What?" And then he said, "Wait, let me explain." He says, "You somehow see the gold in people, and you tend
People.
to dig it out." And I was like, "Phew, I don't mind being called that." I said, "Thank you very
Yeah.
much." So I guess that was something that was in me way before I chose this as my career. So yeah, we need to create impact as leaders, and we need to increase our influence. And I love people. I genuinely love people. I can count with one hand the people that I don't get along with. Maybe just two people in my whole life, I think. I'm not going to say who they are, but I mean, I can get along with them, but it is challenging, all right? I do get along, but it's challenging, but very few, because I genuinely love and value people. I hope that answers your
Wow.
questions as to why
It
I.
does. It does, Anita, very deeply, very profoundly. Again, a very underlying message in your entire conversation. And just knowing you from when I've even spoken to you before, is empathy is a very strong value that drives you. And I think being a trainer, being a coach, I understand that, that it is probably a very necessary foundational skill for us because we deal with people. So, in everything that you mentioned, where you said you liked observing people, you liked listening to people, you liked people used to come to you, talking to you about what is going through in their life, and you used to listen to that, and not just listening, empathizing with that, understanding what they're going through. I think that entire value of empathy that has been inbuilt in you, and I'm sure there are reasons and experiences which you might or might not be aware of that have built that in you, is what is driving you to be the person that you are today, to be the coach and the trainer that you are today. And that's why that people element comes very strongly from you. You said, John Maxwell also says that leadership is influence, right? Same way as a coach and a trainer, what you do is also that you are influencing those leaders, is how they go back and influence their people and their lives. And what I loved about the entire thing that you said, that is at top for me, is that it impacts their families as well, because whatever worries they have, whatever stresses them out at work, they go back, right? I've heard a lot of people say that that work life balance, leave your emotions at work and leave your work, your home at home. It's not possible. You can leave those tangible elements out there where you can't open your laptop and work maybe, but in your head you can't literally have a split where you're saying that
Right.
this is there, this is there. So that's a very important point that you brought. If things are not well at work, it will impact your family, because it's the same person who's going home. And if
Yes.
things are not right at home, it's the same person who's coming to work. So it will show an impact. Some people
Exactly.
might be very good at hiding it externally, but internally people are burning. They might or might not show it. And I'm glad that as a coach and as a trainer, with the empathy that you carry, with the connection that you have for people, I'm glad the service that you're doing. I'm sure people who have worked with you already are much, much better as people and leaders that they were before. So thank you so much for sharing what you shared with us, Anita. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant.
Now, moving forward, Anita, there's a promise that I made, the introduction video that I made yesterday, which I shared with people saying that we're getting Anita with us. The promise that I made to people is that in this conversation, yes, we will set a context of leadership. The baseline is leadership and the importance of it. But we will also move to more practical challenges that come in leadership, and we will also follow it up with solution to those challenges. So it's time that we move into that conversation. Now, before we do that, let's quickly, it reminds me of my promise to the audience, so let's quickly see what comments we have here. And that's a feedback I'm working on, so I don't want to miss out on that. So we have Ravi Tej Singh Mago saying that's great thought, Anita. Sujit Pai says, "Wow, Anita, what an explanation on gold digger." Yes, that was a brilliant, and everyone wants to be that kind of a gold digger. So I'm glad that's how it is. Mona Lisa says, "Gold digger has got a whole new perspective today." Absolutely, it does. Kavindra says, "Leadership is all about influencing." Nice and insightful perspective, Anita. Monica says, "Well said, Anita. Insightful." Okay, great. Super. I think those are the comments that we have right now. We'll move forward and we'll get back to comments in a while, because I don't want to go inside that promise so much that it becomes all about the comments, right? I have to control myself. Prashant, you have Anita here to talk to as well. Good. So let's move to the challenges part, Anita. So my question to you next is that if you can list down top three challenges of leader today, I'm sure there are many, but if you had to list down from your experience top three, what would they be and why do you say that?
Okay. I'm going to start with the challenge of our own experiences having a leader in our lives, having a
Okay.
leader at work. I'm going to start from there first because I'm thinking, right? If you have experienced great leadership as you came into the working environment in your late 20s, when you started joining the workforce, and you had a leader that you reported to who was so inspiring, who was so encouraging, who lifted you up when you were down, who gave you opportunities, who validated and affirmed everything that you did right, who gave you good feedback so you could be better. Now, if you had such experiences, I'm thinking you would know the value of it, right? You would know the value of it, and you would want to be that type of a leader. Because if that kind of a leader moved you to being a high performer at work, when you became a leader, you would want to do the same. Because what you've experienced, you want to share it with others because it did you good. It did you a lot of good. So you would want to do that, right? But on the contrary, if you were in an environment where your leader was terrible, he criticized you, he caused you to have fear, he threatened you, or he never even acknowledged you when you did something right, but when you made a mistake, he would just blast
Mm,
it out in front of everyone else in the meeting, and he would make you feel so bad, and then you go home feeling so yucky and horrible. If that was your experience, and if your leader always says things like, when I was at your level, I didn't go back at 7 o'clock, I went back at 10 o'clock when I was at your level. If you had such a person that you reported to,
mm,
then what do you learn? What do you
mm,
learn? You tend to learn that that's the norm. That's the norm, because for 10 over years you went through that and it made you tough. It made
mm,
you tough, yes, but did it make you a good leader? I don't know.
mm.
Made you tough. So next, when you get promoted and you get somebody else to work for you, you're telling the guy the same story.
Same
It's like a
story.
vicious cycle. What happens, from years ago. That's how it goes. That's the
Mm,
way the world works. You all
mm,
get in the rat race and you just try to step over whoever you need to step to get to where you want to go. If that's
mm,
all you've been exposed to, in terms of experience, you always blame that generation before you because that's all
mm,
you know. And in your defense, the tendency would be to say, but that's how it's always been. I grew
mm,
up in that environment, not only at work, maybe even at home. When my parents used to criticize me and I had to be tough enough to take it. But things are not the same anymore. Things are not the
mm,
same anymore. Through the generations, things have evolved, things have changed, people have grown. There are so many more resources out there, right?
mm,
So one of the challenges I find is what we have experienced. Our own experiences could
mm.
have, stopped us from being the kind of leader we could have been.
Wow.
That's one. Yeah.
Mm.
And the
That
second
that's
one,
something to reflect on. I'm sorry to stop you,
yeah,
Anita.
no,
Now,
no, no, go ahead.
before we move on to the
Go
second
ahead.
one, this is this is such a deeply reflective thing for all of us as people, as leaders, just as humans, to reflect on what you said, because it's so powerful that our experiences that we take so much pride in, that those experiences that we feel have made us who we are today, a lot of times we also need to reflect back to them, saying that, are they also stopping us from being someone who we should actually be? Are
Yeah,
those the reasons? Are those experiences actually not allowing me to be the leader, be the person, be the parent, be the husband, be the son that I am capable of being? And that's such a powerful thing that you mentioned, Anita, that the first challenge could be your own experiences. So it's
yes,
very important for us to get aware of this challenge and, think about
absolutely.
it. If
Yeah.
what we consider our strength is probably one of our biggest weaknesses, is probably one of our biggest roadblocks. So very, I would think about it for sure. A very deeply reflective thought, Anita. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah. And also it's our experiences have the power to impact our attitude, and the way we think. So we need to reflect on our experiences to see what impact
Absolutely,
does it have
absolutely.
on our leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It,
it's
it, it
true.
reminds me of something that Sujit said in the last interview that we had. He also mentioned this point that, his first leader, he always said that, the person who you report to the first, that person has a huge impact on the kind of employee and the leader you become, because you think that is leadership. That is how things need to be done. And, as you said, it's a vicious cycle. Then you become that kind of a leader, and people who report to you think this is leadership. So the cycle never ends. Somebody had sowed this seed 100 years back, but the cycle is continuing because the leaders are continuously getting led by such leaders or built by such leaders. So great
Yeah,
point, Anita. Thank you so much.
yeah.
What's next?
Um, okay, so the experiences, and probably the next one I would say would be the culture. The
Hmm.
culture, the culture of the organization, whether people are prioritized, or which is prioritized, competitors and not competitors, customers, or what the customers want, or the people and how well they are coping with the workload, and all. What is prioritized, or performance, because there are certain cultures in organizations where performance is prioritized regardless of how the people are feeling, because
Hmm.
results are top priority.
Hmm.
And some leaders would say, you're having slight fever, so just be tough. I used to have fever and cough and phlegm and I still came to work, and you are having slight headache and you're taking the day off. You know? So what is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
culture of the organization?
Position. True.
Yeah, we need to consider that the impact on people, are you going to
Hmm.
flow along with that culture? Is that culture helping people to perform at their optimum? And culture is made up of the majority, right?
Hmm.
So no amount of culture transformation, launching out new ways, no, that's not going to take place unless the leaders themselves change first. The leaders themselves choose individually, alone. They need to
Hmm.
change first and then
Hmm.
model it to their 3 people they are reporting, or their 10 people, or their 30 people. They need to model it to them. So the change really comes from the leader. So it's
Hmm.
not about what the organization is implementing. What are things, from the
Hmm.
top, highest level, what are they implementing? They can
Hmm.
implement the best transformation, the best ideas. They can pick the best things, but unless and until each individual leader
Hmm.
chooses to change first, then how can any culture change? Because the people are looking to the leader. Years ago, 15 over years ago, when I used to have training sessions, there used to be many executives. And these executives report to managers, they report to senior managers and directors. So these people used to tell me this, Anita, we want to change. I want to change. After the session, I want to change.
Hmm.
But what if my boss doesn't change? What if he doesn't support me in the change that I'm making? How
Hmm.
long do you think this change can last?
Hmm.
And I totally agreed with them. I said, you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
You can choose to keep changing even though your environment doesn't it's not conducive for you to sustain the change. You
Hmm.
can choose to. It'll be tough, yes. Because you see, if the leaders don't create that environment where people can grow, where people can change, where people can be happy, then how are we going to increase performance?
Hmm.
Yes, it's important. Definitely. I am for performance. I am for excellence. I am for achievement. But we have to go back where it all begins. We have to
Hmm.
go back where it all begins. And it begins with the people. And which group of the people? Leaders. So the culture, if we want to change the culture, I think the leaders need to take the stand and say, okay, I need to start first. Even though the whole world is not changing, I need to
Hmm.
be the first person to make that change and show it to the few people that are reporting to me. So culture is made up of the majority, but
Hmm.
someone has to start and impact the inner circle, and then it grows, grows,
Hmm.
grows. And let top management do whatever they need to
Hmm.
change the culture. Yes, you comply, you support, but remember, you're not doing something because for the sake of top management. You're doing it because you recognize that you are a big part of
Hmm.
the change
Hmm.
in the culture.
Hmm.
So I think that would be the second one, I want to talk about.
Great.
Yeah.
So, what I could hear or understand from what you're saying, Anita, that the second challenge is the perspective of the leader towards leadership.
Yeah.
Does he or she look at leadership purely a performance driving role of somehow
Yeah.
getting results and exceeding performance? Or
Right.
does the leader look at it as a balance of people and performance both? And a very valid point that you mentioned was that leading by example and circle of influence, which
Yeah.
means if you have 5, 10, 23, 5 people reporting to you, it's important for you to understand that for those people, you are the organization. They don't care if the CEO is the world's best CEO or if the CEO is the world's worst CEO.
Yeah.
It does not impact them. For them, who they report to you, who they report to, that leader defines organization, because their
Yes.
experience is completely based on how that one person treats them, how that one person creates that culture or environment, right? So
Exactly.
as a leader, what you beautifully said was that do not worry about what is working and what's not working when it comes to the top management, because then you get into that blame game that the level above me
Yes.
is not doing anything, then the level above me is not doing anything, and nothing
Yes.
changes. Look
Right.
at what change you can bring in your own circle of influence. What can you bring forward, and how can you show and display those characters and lead by example? That is in your control. Now, while doing that, ensure that you are keeping that balance of people and performance both, because it's important to understand the means to the end as well. It's not
Yes.
that somehow or anyhow get the results. That is
Yeah.
right, that's not what we mean. And you also said that you are in for excellence, you completely believe in performance, you
Definitely.
understand that results are very vital, otherwise the business will shut down.
Yes.
But you need to work on the root. You can't work on the fruit. You need to work on the root. The fruit will fix itself. And that
Yes.
root is culture that you mentioned, the
Right.
thinking of leadership. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for bringing these 2 points. The first
Yeah.
challenge that you mentioned was, can you remind me?
The first challenge was our experiences,
Yes,
how
our
it has
experiences
impacted.
and understanding of whether they are working for you or for against you. And number two is your perspective and your thinking about leadership. What do you consider as leadership? Who are you as a leader? Now, before we
Mm.
jump to the third challenge, Anita, can we quickly look at a couple of questions that are
Yes,
coming our
please.
way? Okay,
Sure.
great. Super. So we have a question from Sudhanshu Banerjee. He says, how to know that my leader will guide or misguide me? So a very, very valid question.
Very
Thank you, Sudhanshu.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. How to know that my leader will guide or misguide me? For me, personally, I have my values, I have my goals, right? So if my leader listens to me, knows me well, to know and ask me questions where I get to share with him what my goals are in this organization while I'm trying my best to achieve the organization vision. I have my goals as well, right? What I want to achieve, how I want to grow. Now, if he listens to me and helps me achieve that, he's doing right by me. But if he tries to get me to be like him, right? Or get
Hmm.
me to be like the other guy sitting next door, right? Sitting
Hmm.
in the next cubicle, and he compares me with him and tells me, he's like that, he's like this. Why can't you do that? Why don't you go and learn from him how to be more like him? Then
Hmm.
he does not understand me. He does not understand me. He's
Hmm.
treating all of us like a production, where everybody is produced the same way, where you you
Hmm.
don't be like the other guy who's doing really well. Just try to mimic him, and
Hmm.
that's it. That's it. So if you would ask me how to know, you would know deep in your heart when you are reporting to him and you're dealing with him. Is he inspiring you? Is
Hmm.
he encouraging you? Is he making you feel that you've got gold in you waiting to come out? Is he Does he even bring out the gold? Is he a gold digger? Which is, he's
Yeah.
looking at you and
Yeah.
saying, hey, Sudangsu, you have gold in you. Come, let me show you. Do you notice this about yourself? And you're like, I didn't. So, you see, this
Hmm.
is where your strength lies. And then
Hmm.
you feel like you're on top of the world, you're floating up to cloud nine. Of course, this is our dream world, but yeah, but you know what I mean, right? It's like
Yeah.
put in
Yeah.
certain things in you where you believe in yourself more, and you're excited. You're excited for the projects, you're excited for the
Hmm.
work you're going to do. But if you're feeling tired, exhausted, then perhaps you need to ask yourself, is there something in me that I'm not doing? Now, I'm not saying blame your leader completely, no, because there is something called self leadership.
Hmm.
There's something called self leadership. So whether we have a good leader or not, right, we need to know how to lead ourselves first.
Hmm.
We need to know how to influence ourselves positively first, so
Hmm.
that we will never need to blame anybody for our, that I'm feeling very down is because of him, because of her, because of them. We don't do that. So we
Hmm.
ourselves need to grow in our leadership, whether you have a direct report or not. That will be something I want to share in my third challenge. Yeah, but for now, I hope that is that kind of answers your question to some in some form, Sudangsu. Yeah, if you could just respond back, and that will be helpful.
Sure, sure. We'll wait for that. And now, Sudhanshu, what Anita tried to say is, just to put a gist of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anita. What you're trying to say is that if you have a leader who creates a space for you, as you mentioned earlier, Anita, that the safe space, if the leader creates that safe space for you where you're able to be yourself, you're able to open up about who you are. If your leader respects your individuality, tries to understand what your values are, what your vision is, what do you want there, because you are in that role for a reason, not
Yeah.
just to do your job. If that person gives you that honest space to express and listens and understands and helps you, shows you how their larger vision of the team or the organization is in alignment with what you
Yes.
want as an individual, then you are working with the right leader. Now, having said this, Anita also mentioned a very important point of self leadership. That does not mean that you sit on a chair and you wait for a leader to come to you and drag you and tell you what is your vision, what is your goal, what do you want from life, I'm here to help you. That's not going to happen, right?
Yes.
Someone might do it, but most people
Yeah.
won't do it. So you have to take that leadership because you own your space, your career, your vision. So you need
Exactly.
to reach out to your leader saying that, "Ki boss, we need to have a
Yes.
conversation. I would like to
Yes.
share my goals, my vision, my values with you."
Right.
And then if that person does not give you that space, does not respect that, then you know that you probably are not aligned with the right kind of leader. He or she is not a
Absolutely.
good or a bad leader, but
No.
does not align with the kind of leader that you would want to,
Yes.
work with or move forward with. So that's how
Yes.
I would sum up what you said, Anita. Did I miss
Yeah,
anything?
that's true. No, no. It was a great summary. Love
Okay,
what you
great.
do.
Super. So, Sutanshu, I hope that answered your question. Please let us know in comments. The next question we have, Anita, is from Kuldeep.
Okay.
He says, age old patterns in leadership, wrong or right, if working rightly, is that okay to continue or still requires a change? I think he's coming from those experiences that, the vicious cycle of 100 years.
Yes.
So he's
Yes.
asking you that, should we just continue because it's been working that way for so long, or does it need change?
Very interesting question. Thanks, Kuldeep, for that. I'm just reading the question again. Yeah, age-old patterns in leadership, wrong or right? If working rightly, so I would go further to ask, what do you mean by working rightly? Working rightly for us, or working rightly for the people who are reporting to us? Working rightly for who, right? That's one. So let's say it's
Hmm.
working rightly for everybody.
Hmm.
Everybody is happy, and performance is like above average, above average, and the top management is excited, and you are happy, your team is happy. Then maybe you have been doing the right things. You have been showing
Hmm.
them appreciation. You have been taking care of them. You have been valuing them.
Hmm.
You've been doing everything right, because maybe you had a leader who did that for you, and you loved
Hmm.
that, and you continued that. So it could be because certain leaders were very different from last time, right? But not
Hmm.
all. So if you say working rightly, for me, working rightly would mean high morale, high performance, and people
Hmm.
feel valued, that they continuously perform. Momentum, there's momentum. So if that's the case, please go ahead. And if it's an alignment with the culture of the organization, the direction of the organization, and everybody is so excited, then yes, please go ahead. But please do verify what working rightly for who,
Yeah.
and what does working rightly really mean. Yeah.
True. Great, great answer, Anita. So, what you're trying to say essentially is that if things are working right, which means there's a proper balance of people and performance happening in the organization, the entire organization is moving in the direction, the space that they would want to work and move forward to it, then just in the name of bringing in change, just for that pressure of bringing in innovation, we don't want a change. If everything is working fine, there's no need to change, right? There's a
No
lot
need
of
to
stigma
change,
and a lot
yes.
of.
Yeah, but one thing, Prashant, is also important to recognize that best can get better tomorrow. Our best
Hmm.
can get better tomorrow. So things may
Hmm.
be working well and right, but we also don't want to get stuck in status quo.
Nice.
The status quo, it's not the way to go, right? So if you
Hmm.
want to increase that, then we still can ask, anything else we can do differently? It's not that things are bad, we need to change. Things can be
Hmm.
good, and we still can implement one or two changes to make it even better, because we
Hmm.
never rest on our best. Our best can always get better.
Better.
So coming from that perspective, we can change anything if we realize that, I think we've been doing really great, but I think if there's nothing we can do better, then we don't need to exist tomorrow.
Hmm.
Because what's
True.
tomorrow for,
True.
right? If you're going to
True.
repeat today forever, what's tomorrow for? So why
Hmm.
don't we, innovate? Let's think of creative ways. Maybe we could save one day of in something that we do. We could save hours, man hours. We could save time. We could save resources. I mean, manpower, resources.
Hmm.
There's so many things you could do. If you could do it in one day, how about now thinking how we could do it in half a day? Possible?
Hmm.
Sure,
Hmm.
through time, people get very creative, they brainstorm. So, in that sense, things can also get better.
Better.
Yeah,
Great point, Anita. So what you're trying to say is that if things are working right, like how he put working rightly, if there is a balance, it's great. There is no need for a forceful change. Now, having said that, it does not also mean that we get complacent. It's very
correct.
important to constantly look what can we get better at. How can we
Yes,
improve things so that we
yes,
constantly evolve and keep moving on the
Correct.
cycle of growth and not get stuck, because then tomorrow you may suddenly be obsolete because you did not work on innovation and you did not make the
Yes, you do
necessary
not
change.
grow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And apart from just as an organization or as a leader of an organization, even as people, now when I'm reflecting on what you're saying, it's very important to take that even just as a person, that it's
Mhm.
not just about your career or leadership, that as a person, what can I do better in terms of improving my physical health, my mental health, my financial health, my spiritual health, my family happiness, everything. What can I do within that domain of peace, of not creating unnecessary stress for myself? How can I
Yes.
keep taking that one step forward? So that
Yes.
can be applied to that context as well. And as you said, that what's that statement, status quo is not the way
It's
to
not
go.
the way to go.
I think that
I'm
would
gonna
be our
I'm gonna put a
takeaway.
quote. I'm gonna create a quote. It just came out. Status quo
Yes,
is
that's
not the
powerful.
way
Kuldeep,
to
I hope you
go.
got your answer. So you'll have to think more about what working rightly means for you. Then this answer would be more applicable to you. Just the last question quickly before we move forward to the third challenge. Sujit Pai says, "Hi Anita, what should be the approach of leadership while driving culture with youngsters, with millennials?" So quick thoughts on this.
Sujit, I love your question, Sujit. Uh, because I've spent about 12 years with young people. This has got nothing to do with my job, right? My career. It's something I do on the side. I spent 12 years with young people who eventually grew up to be young adults. Yeah, because over 12 to 13 years I've known them. And they want to see role models. They want to see role models. They need to see how it looks like. And our influence towards them is not in words, it's in action. It's in the way we make them feel. And I've seen contrasting responses based on where they are working. I've listened to many stories from younger people when they feel like people don't understand them. So it always comes back. And then the older generation will always say we have generation gap issues. And I actually went to this very large company, I think close to maybe 10 years ago. They called me in to speak. There were a few hundred people there. And you know what the topic was? It was talking about generation gap that was between Gen X and Gen Y. And as I entered that big hall, you won't believe it. The moment I walked in, I was setting up and all that. And then everybody was just walking in. And when I started and I looked, it was hilarious because Gen X was on my left and Gen Y was on my right. And there was an aisle in the middle. And I was like, what is this? This is a generation gap. And they all started laughing, because it was so evident. You could see the Gen X on the left and the Gen Y on the right.
Right.
It's because they feel they can't identify with one another. So it's not about leading them, it's
Hmm.
about identifying with them. It's about getting to know them. It's about revealing our vulnerabilities to them, teaching them through our stories. You know the power of stories. Sujit, you probably have amazing stories of how you transitioned from where you were before, to how you grew in your leadership, how difficult it was, what did you apply, how did you feel. You have your stories, and your stories will be really a jewel for them to learn from, rather than us, because we are much more senior, we will refer to the youngsters and say, you all need to do this, you all need to do that, and that's the way it should be. And they are like, according to who?
Hmm.
And they will just blame us and tell us it worked when it was your time. This is
Hmm.
our time, and what you're doing is not working.
True. Yeah.
So the approach of leadership is really personal.
Hmm.
Just connecting with them. I guess when we talk about solutions, I'll be able to talk more about this. But yeah, just connecting with them, and it's personal. Leadership is connection. Leadership is influence, and without getting to know the people, the youngsters, without empathizing with where they come from, the challenges they are facing, being youngsters in this era, is not like the challenges we faced. Just
Hmm.
social media alone has messed up so many youngsters. Just social media,
Hmm.
bullying, comparison, just making others feel bad so you can feel better, because
Hmm.
the comment on social media is also there. Social media is great. There are a lot of great things, but there are also a lot of things which people have fallen victim to.
Hmm.
So they have grown very differently than us. where we grew without social media. At least I grew without social media. I connected with people. I understood what people were talking about. I spent hours with people. Now people spend hours on the phone. They
Yeah.
spend hours chatting, but it's different. They don't have that physical connection. And now with COVID-19, everyone is just staring at a camera lens. And that also, they say that I get fatigue, Zoom fatigue, screen fatigue. So everything is very different. And leaders need to understand that the youngsters are growing up very differently from the way we have grown up. So we need to understand where they are coming from, and we need to help them where they are at, not
Hmm.
where we are at. Because many
Hmm.
times we try to help the youngsters from where we stand, but they are
Hmm.
not there, because they're just coming into the work environment. So connecting with them, understanding who they are, what they've been through, and helping them from their point of view and where they are at. I think that would be a helping, that will help them to understand what leadership is about, and even in culture, because their culture is different from our culture, right? And
True.
you're not going to agree on it. You're not going to agree on it. So how do you build a culture together in an organization or even in a family? How are you going to have that culture in the family where a youngster can feel accepted, loved, and the adults can feel accepted and loved? Because I also know of many families where the parent and the teenagers, where they just go at loggerheads, and they just fight and fight and
Hmm.
fight. Even a family culture with 5 people, it's so difficult to build. What more an organization where you've got baby boomers, you've got Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, millennials, you've got the whole works in an organization.
Hmm.
So yes, there will be challenges, and unless and until we learn to connect and really understand people, we will not be able to just use one approach to handle everybody.
Everybody. Yeah. So, Nita, from what you said, if I had to sum it up, what stood out for me was connection and influence. That this generation is not open to just taking directions. This generation is not open to just giving SOPs that
Yeah.
these are the standard operating procedures, follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it'll take you to 6.
Right.
They want to understand why. They want to understand how it applies to today's times.
Yes.
They also want to explore what can be done differently. They're not
Yes.
just open to just doing what's being told to them. And connection is more important to them as people, that you need to understand their story and you need to convey your story as leader.
Yes.
That is how you can convey it. And you very
Yes.
well, very beautifully said. I'm sure Sujit and many other leaders out there who are where they are today have so many stories which they do not reflect back into, because they probably just took their entire journey saying that, okay, all right, I've done
Yeah.
what I've done and I'm here. But that is the power, that is the treasure.
Yes.
If you pull out
Yes.
those stories one by one and talk to people about those stories, take them deep into those stories, is when people will be able to relate to you as people and
Yes.
not just the designation. And then
Correct.
people will respect you and will take directions from you, because now they connect with you saying that, I
Yes.
know what you've gone through, I know who you are deep inside, I respect you deep inside, so I will follow you. And
Yeah.
that's now where
Absolutely.
connection and influence comes into picture. So I
Absolutely.
hope that answered your question. Great. Sujit says, thanks, Anita. I fully echo with you. So that's great. So coming
Thank
back to our conversation and challenges, I have to
you.
keep playing this game, as, I have to go to comments and I have to come back. So coming to the third challenge. So two challenges that we
Yeah.
discussed till now, where the first challenge was
Experiences that we've been through.
experiences, if they are roadblocks for you or not. I'm getting memory loss, probably going
And
into comments, short term memory.
and the culture,
And the
Prashant.
second one was the perspective of leadership, right?
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah.
culture. How do you see
Yeah.
leadership, right? Now, coming to the
Right.
third challenge, what is that, Anita?
Yeah, this one I've experienced it all throughout the time that I've been having conversations with many leaders. People think they are leaders just because they have a title. They
Hmm.
genuinely think they are leaders because they have a title of manager, senior manager, director, GM, vice president, or whoever, whatever that sounds like a title, right? They automatically think that they are leaders, and
Hmm.
but that's not true. That's not true. You were promoted because you were competent, you were good in your job, right? You were promoted, given more responsibilities because you did so well. And so they
Hmm.
put on more responsibilities, and as a way of rewarding you, they promote you to get the job done with the team, right? But that was given because you earned it. Of course, that was given.
Hmm.
But being a leader is not given. Being a leader is actually a role you choose. You choose it. And you choose it even way before you have a title. So someone
Hmm.
who's 22, yeah, 22, just graduated and just started working, that guy may wake up one morning and say, I want to be an influential leader. He can choose that for himself, even without a title. Because you see, when we were promoted, right? Nobody asked us, are you committing to lead people? They don't
Hmm.
ask us for that commitment. They just give us the KPIs, what each person needs to accomplish, what is the goal. And you're supposed to do whatever you can to manage the group, to delegate. And I mean, when we take up a promotion, it's not in our minds, I want to lead the team. They don't ask, do you lead a team or do you want to lead a team? Most of us take up a promotion because we want to advance our career, which is
Career.
great because you're responsible for your career advancement. Nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing wrong with that. But you're expected to lead. You're expected to help people discover their gold. You're expected to
Hmm.
inspire people. But then you're thinking, hello, I'm a manager. I'm a senior manager now. And I'm a director. I've got so many people. How do I inspire? No, I just want to manage. I
Hmm.
just want to manage. I want to be able to help them firefight. If then there's a problem, they come to me. I will make sure this is the end result. I'll tell them, go ahead, discuss how you're going to get me the result. Come back to me, tell me how you're going to achieve it. I just want to manage. But that
Hmm.
won't cut it. It's not enough, because being a leader is so much more than managing. So the manager is like this, right? The manager is like this. So I'm asking you, within you, do you have a leader? I think we all do. But the question is that leader activated? Is that leader this big? Or is that leader this big? Or is that leader this big?
Hmm.
Oh, is the leader really tiny? So that when you
Hmm.
try to lead and you try to inspire, it doesn't seem to work, because you tend to
Hmm.
give directions, because the leader in you has not been activated. So when I say, when you get your offer letter for promotion, it doesn't say leader, it just gives you the title and the responsibilities and maybe a change in your package or your compensation, right? And they
Hmm.
want to reward you, to thank you for the work that you've done well, which is great. Go for it. Keep going for it if that's your goal and your dream. Go for it. But we need to ask ourselves, if we have been given the title, can I really carry the load? Can I lead with influence? Because managing
Hmm.
is not leading. And if our leader is tiny, we need to grow that leader within us, because
Hmm.
the being will determine the doing. I say that
Wow.
again. The being will determine the doing.
Doing.
If we grow the leader within us, if we grow ourselves, that means our being is changing already. And when the being is growing and becoming such an amazing person, the
Hmm.
doing will adjust itself. You will know what to do, you will know how to do it. Right?
Hmm.
But many people try to force themselves to change the doing and they get exhausted. They get exhausted and they say, why is this so stressful? Because you're trying to do things before you are ready for
Very
it,
ready.
and before you have gotten the juice. You know what I mean? You're not charged, your battery is already blinking, and you're still trying to give your best, and you're trying to move people, and you're like a, you call it like a dead duck. Like a dead duck already. Your energy is
Hmm.
fleeting, because the being hasn't been taken care of yet.
Wow.
So forget the title. I mean, sorry, don't forget the title. Get the title, get your promotion, get your advancement. That's great. But don't forget the leader in you. The leader in
Hmm.
you needs to grow. Only then you'll be able to lead with influence. Because knowing everything theoretically, all the concepts, it. You've read many books. Maybe you've attended many trainings. You know it. But how many of those things? Because just knowing it, the knowledge alone makes us a knower. A knower, Knower, a knower. But the moment you apply it in you, it makes you a learner. A learner who applies, then your being changes. And when your
Hmm.
being changes, I guarantee you, your doing becomes less frustrating, less stressful, because you have the capacity to lead. Yeah, so that's something I want to say. The title and the position, that's not leadership. That's not leadership. You need to grow the leader within you to see whether you can cope with what's coming for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was extremely powerful, and the summary of the whole thing would just be this. If I do this, I think everyone will remember what we spoke about. Understand the manager in you, understand the leader in you. Is the leader activated in you? Are you a leader just by title, or have you actually worked on being a leader? And what I loved in what you said is that if you're struggling with what you're doing, it's because it's not become a part of your being yet, and that can be in any area of your life. If there are actions that you're taking which seem like a struggle every day, you don't feel like doing it, you don't see the results, you hate the entire process, it's because you're not being the person that you need to be to do what you need to do. And you said it starts with knowledge. Yes, you gather those concepts, you understand those concepts, but then you actually apply those concepts when you become a learner. That is where you make mistakes, that's where things work, things don't work, and you become that person. Your being starts changing, and it reflects in your doing. So that's very powerful. So I would request everyone to keep this image in your mind of and ask yourself that there are two things that we have as a leader as that title with us. There is a manager and there is a leader, and both are very important, but we need to understand where are we. Is the leader inside us activated because the position that you took was because of your career progression, or did you actually work on being the leader that Anita is speaking about? So think about that, and with that awareness, start working on it. So thank you so much for that, Anita. I think with that, we have covered three challenges of leadership. Now it's time to move to solutions. And in the interest of time, is it all right if we exceed by another 10 to 15 minutes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Thank you so much, audiences. And I'm sorry that we're almost close to an hour. If you don't have time to continue on this live, we will continue this conversation. You can always come back to the recording whenever you have time, and you can listen to what we spoke after that, because now we're going to talk about the solutions to the challenges that Anita spoke about. So thank you so much. So Anita, coming back to you, talking about the solutions now. So let's move to that part now. The challenges that we discussed, if we take them one by one, can you help us with the solutions for each of this challenge?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, let's say when we look at experiences, right, the first challenge we talked about. So, in terms of solution, let's think about currently who are the leaders you admire? Who are the leaders you admire? Is it the person you're reporting to now? Is that the leader that you're looking up to, who inspires you every day, who gives you that boost in your day-to-day work experience? Are you spending time with such a leader? If you say no, I don't have such a leader, okay, fine. Do you have any other person that you look up to? Because you need to see what it looks like. You need to be the recipient, you need to be on the receiving end of such a leadership. So put yourself in positions where you get to know people who are of that caliber, leadership caliber. So that person may not even have a rank. It could even be your own father, it could be your grandfather, it could be your uncle, it could be your ex-boss, it could be someone's boss who is taking on, mentorship and wanting to mentor some people. I don't know, but there must be somebody in your circle where it may not be your inner circle, but find out, because this is important, to talk to people that you admire, that you learn from their life experience. Because when we have such people within us, our circle, right, we also are accountable to them. We are accountable to them about how we live our lives. We are accountable. So who are you accountable to? Who are you accountable to? Do you have some accountability partners? It's so important. In this context, right, I want to share with you a little bit about chess and checkers. Okay, chess and checkers. So just bear with me. Managers play checkers. Checkers, right? Every piece moves the same, right? Checkers. But leaders, they play chess. So what do I mean by this? Managers
Yes.
move people the same way. Managers move people the same way. But leaders move people differently. Leaders move people differently because each chess piece has its own strength and weakness, and they're very different. And a leader knows how to move these people according to their best potential, their best capabilities. The leader knows how to move them. But a manager may not go that extra mile to see that. The manager may just say, okay, guys, this is what I need to get done. Can you come here? Can you both go and work on it and just get me what I need, because we're running out of time. So when you're operating under the manager role, you forget that, oh, I need to move them differently, because you've been so used to moving people, just delegating and getting the job done. But when you're operating as a leader, you need to ask yourself, what kind of a leader am I going to be? So know yourself first. Know yourself first, and then know others. How do we know ourselves? What does it mean, know ourselves? Have better self-awareness. There are so many tools out there that can help us know ourselves. Now, personally, for me, what changed my life for over 20 years, actually, before I even got into training, right? When I was in my late teens, this tool called Personality Plus. All right, this tool called Personality Plus. It shows us what our strengths and weaknesses, what personality we are, what are our emotional needs, how we are wired, what's our hot buttons, and where we can shine, how we can shine, and triggers. It reveals everything. And the best part is, when I went to US in 2000 to get certified for this tool, when I came back, I started developing programs which had this tool within my programs. So I begin to help people recognize who they are in terms of their personality. And then they're able to do the same when they look at their colleagues, their team members. They can look at them and say, oh my goodness, now I know why we've been conflicting. Now I know why we find it so difficult to work together. I know which area to fix in myself. I know how to
Mm,
go down in order to influence that person better. And I know how to tap on that person's strength because now I recognize his personalities. So when I do this for organizations, they're just wowed because they
mm,
realize it was so simple. There's no 40-page report, there's no 30-page report or 10-page report. There's no report, but it's a tool that can be used immediately after the training. Simple, relevant,
mm,
and so user friendly, which is transformational. So even
mm,
recently, I mean, I'm doing that for 20 years. Even the people, the leaders who have gone through it, they told me, Anita, this has changed our team because I shared a little bit of what you taught us, and I went to my team and I spoke about my personality and I asked them to guess theirs, and they managed to guess it based on how I teach them to do it. And guess what? We started laughing. So what used to be a trigger and a stressful moment now became such a relaxed moment because now I'm not against you. So happen our personalities tend to clash. So when I understand that, I can accept you better because I know you're not out to get me. It is
mm.
just a personality difference. So
Yeah.
that understanding has increased the level of acceptance. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of self-awareness. If you want to play chess, you need to be a leader who, number one, knows yourself first. Once you know yourself, you need to
Mm,
embrace your strength and weakness. And then when you recognize others, you embrace their strength and weakness and help them through the journey. And
mm,
we are so used to saying the golden rule. The golden rule, we've heard it, treat others the way they want to be treated, right? That's the
mm,
golden rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated. Yes, that's great, but that applies to generosity, kindness, respect, honesty. Great. I mean, that is generic for everybody. We all want that. That's fine. But when you're a leader, you level up from the golden rule to the platinum rule. The platinum rule goes like this: treat others the way they want to be treated. Treat others the way they want to be treated because they are
mm,
different in their personalities. They are different in the way they think. So if you
mm,
want to influence them, you need to know them. You need to know what makes them tick, what propels them, what really
mm,
moves them. And then you can bring people to a higher level of performance. So really, who are the people? Who are your examples? Who are your examples? And play chess. That's the solution. Play
mm.
chess. No matter what experiences you've gone through,
Yeah.
you form new experiences. You put yourself in positions where you can generate new experiences. Find leaders that may not be directly in charge of you. Find somewhere else, your father, grandfather, whoever. Look upon leaders who don't have titles as well because they have a lot to teach us. So I think that would be one solution that I want to share about.
Wonderful point, Anita. I think for the experience challenge, this is a big solution, that surround yourself with people who have those values that you would like to imbibe.
Yeah.
It's great to read books, it's great to read life stories and gain from them,
Yes.
but it's also important to have those mentors, those guides in your life
Absolutely.
who can show you what it is in action. And number
Yeah.
two, the question that you asked everybody to ask is, who am I accountable to? Because a lot of times, since we are not accountable to anybody, we lack things, or we don't follow the
Yeah.
path that we ideally should be. So it's
Yeah.
important to ask yourself, who am I accountable to? If you are not accountable to anyone, please find an accountability partner. It could be a
Yes.
peer, it could be a senior, it could be anybody in your family, in your workplace, somebody who you relate to, somebody who you connect with at a value system level, somebody who you
Mhm.
look up to. Is find them, put them as your accountability partner, and maybe you can be
Yeah.
the same for them. and you both would find an accountability partner there. So that's a
Yes.
great thought. Second thing
Yeah.
that you said is, leveling up the golden rule to the platinum rule. So the golden
Yeah.
rule you said was that treat others the way you want to be treated. That's a golden rule, and we have heard it for so long, that treat
Yes.
others the way you want to be treated. Now, that is probably not empathy, because not everyone is you. So it's important to actually move to the platinum rule, which is,
Right.
treat others when they want to be treated. That is where
Absolutely.
empathy comes into picture, where you understand people, their vision, their
Yes.
thoughts, their value system. So that's very
Yes.
powerful. Third thing you said was self-awareness. I think that was the most important thing that you mentioned, that take those assessments. You mentioned
Yes.
personality plus. That's one way of
Yes.
actually understanding your strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses and of your people, so that
Yes.
you become a leader who does not play checkers, does not
Yes.
move everyone the same way. Because you have played checkers is why you feel everybody is playing checkers, but there are people who want to play chess, right? So you need to understand how to play chess. So learn that
Yes.
game
Absolutely.
of playing chess, understanding the strengths of your people, and move them in the game accordingly to their strengths and the
Right.
strength of the overall game. So
Yeah.
that's what I took away from what you said, Anita. So great
Right.
perspectives. Now moving on to the second challenge.
Yeah.
What is the way forward for that?
The culture, right? We talked about the culture, how things have always been, and all that. So we all want to change the culture, whether it's a community, a family, an organization, a team. But the question is, are you ready to change the culture of your team and eventually your organization? If you say, yes, I'm ready to change the culture of my team and my organization. But my next question is, are you ready to change yourself? Because any kind of change
Mm,
starts with ourselves, right? So it starts with you, it starts with me. So when we talk about culture change, let's talk about connecting first. Connecting. Many
mm,
times, right, what we do is we correct people. We correct people. Hey,
mm,
you know what? This way may not work, you know. Why don't you do it this way? No, I didn't like the way you presented. I think you could have presented this way better. We are pros and champions in correcting people, whether it's in the family or in the
mm,
work environment, right? Think
mm,
about it. How many times have you corrected people in the house
mm.
as well? No, you shouldn't wash
True.
the plate that way. No, you do wash it this way. I'm guilty, right? I tend to correct people because I'm the best dishwasher in the house. So I tend to do that. I always like, no, do this first and then rub it this way and then, oh my goodness, guilty, guilty, right? So we tend to correct people, whether it's at home or in the organization. But actually, what we should have been doing is connecting with people. Because I say it again, people drive performance and emotions drive people. So emotions drive
Mm,
people. So are you connecting with people beyond intellectual connection? Are you connecting with people
mm,
beyond intellectual connection? Because intellectual connection is selling an idea and
mm,
entering in the data, the logic behind it, but emotional connection is what's going to seal the deal. Caring for what that person needs, sharing a story which resonates with that person. It's so important to get your message across with emotional connection. And what else you can do to connect better with people? Value them through encouragement, through appreciation, through recognition, not just financial reward and gifts, but words. In the way we communicate with them, do they feel valued? Do they feel
mm,
appreciated? So we need to remember, value people, connect with people, then lead people, right? So
mm.
value people, connect with people, then lead people. But
People.
we can't do any of these three unless we value ourselves, connect with
Mm, mm.
ourselves, and lead ourselves.
Wow.
So many people always think, as a leader, I must do this for that person, do that. And then you're not taking care of yourself. You need to come back,
Mm,
take a step back. Remember I said the being, you need to value yourself. You need to love yourself. You need to connect with yourself. Know yourself so well so you know why you do what you do. Why are you feeling this way? Is your emotions helping you become a better person, or is your emotions sabotaging you? And then lead yourself. Then you'll be able to do the exact same for your people. You'll value
mm,
them, you'll connect with them. Why? Because you value them, you want to connect with them. And then leading them becomes less stressful, less tiring. We cannot give what we do not have, my friends. We cannot give what we do not have. Leaders cannot give what they do not have. So we need to look inwards. So I would say that, in terms of changing the culture and all that, start from within, start from ourselves as leaders. So
mm,
that would be the solution. Value them, connect with them. show them how precious they are. As you do
Hmm.
that, start feeling different. People start responding differently. Then you begin to see the fruits.
Great, Anita. So, very, very valid points. And, the underline of your entire message. And if I just look back even to the previous solution that you gave, there is a lot of self-reflection elements that are coming into picture. That, that understanding that it's more about you than about others. So
Yes,
it's more about understanding ourselves than understanding others. It's more about leading ourselves first before we think about leading others. It's more about becoming the part of the change ourselves before we try to bring in the change outside,
yes,
right? The change within
absolutely,
before change outside. And
absolutely.
the line that was beautifully sums it up is that you can only give what you have. If you are not that person who leads himself, values himself, connects with himself or herself, then you will not be able to do that with others. And if I connect this to what you said earlier, the difference between being and doing, then if you're trying to value others, lead others, connect with others, but you don't do that with yourself, then you will struggle with that doing because it hasn't become a part of your being yet.
Absolutely.
So it's very vital to self reflect and ask yourself that am I taking that journey with myself that I'm looking to take others on. So
Yes.
that's very, very powerful, Anita. And if everybody in the audience, I would request you to self reflect on anything that Anita has said, that and this is one of those conversations where I would request you to go back and listen to what she said earlier, because there are a lot of dots that we are connecting from what we spoke in the first 10 minutes to what we are speaking now in the last 10-15 minutes. So together it will make sense to you, right? So don't just depend on what we just said. Please look back, because there is very deep self reflection that is required if you're serious about change. If you're serious about becoming an authentic leader, then this is my suggestion to you. All right. So coming back to you, Anita, time for the third challenge and the solution for it.
For me, the third one is actually very important and it runs through everything that we've talked about. Growth. Growth. How do we grow? Are we ready to grow as a leader or grow into being an influential leader? Because growth must be intentional. I learned this from John Maxwell, and I love it because I realized that I have grown so much as a result of applying this in my own life. I always say when I talk about self leadership, I always say this: the first and most important person I had to learn, I had to learn this. The first and most important person to grow is myself. If not, I
Hmm.
cannot do what I need to do. And I'm not planning to go and help people grow when I'm not growing, because that would make me the biggest hypocrite on planet Earth. And that's not what I want. It's not aligned with my values. So I worked on myself really, really hard through the past 2 decades. I've reflected so much, and I am still work in progress. I will never say I have arrived, never, because there's so much more to go. And growth
Hmm.
must be intentional. The only automatic growth is our physical growth. Think about it. The only automatic growth that didn't need us to do anything was our physical growth. Because as long as someone fed us milk as a baby, yeah, for the first few months you just drank your milk and then you went to half solid and then full solid. And your parents fed you reasonably well, you would have grown and shot up in size. Nobody really needed to do that much, either whether you're really skinny or you're a bit more tough. Depends on how much food and how much meat you ate, I guess. But that was automatic, right? But that's the only growth that is automatic. Everything else we needed to be intentional. You went to school to grow in academic, right? You went to school, that was intentional. You couldn't just sit at home and do nothing and say I will be eventually smart. No, you had to grow in other aspects. Your emotional growth, your emotional intelligence, that is not automatic. You need to reflect. You need to
Hmm.
ask yourself, am I intelligent emotionally, intellectually? My character growth, my leadership growth, my mindset, am I growing in my mindset? So we need to
Hmm.
activate that leader in us. That leader must grow. That leader must grow. Don't just grow your title and your position until you're so big, but the leader is still so small, and your
Hmm.
responsibilities get so big, but you do not have that capacity because you forgot to activate that leader intentionally. Intentionally, right? The manager is already there. You are skilled. You are the expert. Don't worry about that. You will upskill yourself in the area of your competence and the area of your skill. That's not a problem because you know that. And because you're so busy, you may forget that the leader in you needs to grow. So choose it. Choose to grow that leader. You need to choose to grow intentionally. And then you need to
Hmm.
activate it, and then you can live it. So if you need a coach for this, get a coach. If you say, okay, I want to grow, but I don't know who to talk to, and people around me, they're not the type that want to do this also, then
Mm,
get a coach who can journey with you. Talk to Prashant, and he's a coach. I mean, I'm a coach too, but Prashant, you probably know Prashant better. Get in touch with him and say, Prashant, could you be my coach? I want to grow my leadership. Help me, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. Because again, I
mm,
say leaders can't give what they do not have. So whenever you face a roadblock, right? Whenever you face a roadblock, ask yourself, who is facing this roadblock? The manager or the leader? Ask yourself,
mm,
who is facing the roadblock? Because your answer will determine where your gap is. Your answer will
mm,
determine whether the manager is having a gap or the leader is the one struggling. So you
mm.
really need to ask, are you equipped to lead with influence? That's something I really believe in. Growth. Yeah, that will be the third solution. Constantly growing, being consistent, and being very, very intentional in our growth.
Intentional about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a key word, being intentional about it. A lot of times it's easy to get into a zone where we think I'm not a born leader. I'm not that
Yeah,
person who is an extrovert. I'm not somebody who can go and talk to people, who can influence
right.
people. Now, yes, all that might be true for a lot of people, but again, that image that you put in our mind, that that the manager in you is strong. You understand work, you understand SOPs, you understand the performance
Yeah.
that you need to drive, you understand all the systems, but the leader
Yeah.
in you is probably not activated or is not had did not have an intentional growth pattern or journey till
Right.
now, and that is all right. It's important for you to first be aware that I need that, and once you are aware of that, it's very powerful. Is where your
Yes.
journey starts, where you find an accountability partner, you find a mentor, you find a coach, you find somebody who can help you take that journey of growing your leader insights, instead of
Right.
getting into a world of condemning, complaining,
Yeah.
criticizing, murmuring, passive aggressive conversations that I'm not a leader, this will not work out for me, I'm not made for it, I can't do this. Everybody can. You just need to
Yes.
understand that in that scale you're probably somewhere, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, but you're on that scale. And
Yes.
you need to intentionally put an effort in
Yes.
growing the leader within you, and when that happens, things start becoming better. And again, coming back to the being and doing, your being of a leader starts getting bigger and bigger, is why your doing as a leader also reflects that.
Right.
So intentional growth is what you said, Anita, and that's
Yes.
very powerful. And again, it comes back to self reflection. We this All this cannot happen, you cannot take this journey, whatever we are talking will sound like nonsense, if that is a word I might use, if you're not somebody who self reflects. If you're not aware of who you are, then you might be like, yeah, I heard this, a lot of people say this does not work, that does not work, it's not possible. But if you're somebody who's serious about becoming a leader, if you're somebody who's authentic in this journey, then you need to self reflect and you need to ask yourself, where am I in this journey? Because as Anita said, it's an intentional journey of growth that you'll have to take. Will it be easy? Will it be hard? Will it be simple? Will it not be simple? That's not for you to decide right now. Right now, understand that it's required and make that commitment that I will work on my intentional growth as a person and as a leader. So that's a
Yeah.
very great point that you mentioned, Anita. So we have solution to all three challenges that we discussed. So thank you so much for that. One last question before we end today's conversation, which has been very fruitful, lot of learnings, lot of reflections that we have had, is now we looked at the solutions and we looked at the challenges. Now a lot of people say that, Prashant, it's good that we heard this, we got inspired, and something inside us triggered that we want to take this journey, and we might even be on that journey, but we don't know how to know or how to measure the impact of this whole thing. How do we know that we are on the right journey? How do we know that we are moving ahead and we are actually growing in this journey of intentional growth? So can you
Mm.
share some thoughts on that?
How to know if you're on the journey, and that you're growing in that, right? I think the first thing we need to look within ourselves. So the measurement you want to check with yourself. Firstly, did you choose to be a leader? Remember, I told you the position was given, but every day you wake up, you need to choose. Yes, I want to be an influential leader. It's a daily choice, because one day you can decide, I don't want to be a leader anymore. You can, because that's your
Mm,
choice. So do you
mm,
want to influence others, or do you want to direct others? You have to choose first. So
mm,
let's say you say, I want to influence people, I want to be a leader, right? Then you can ask yourself questions like, do you value people? Do you value
mm,
people within yourself? You need to ask that, because that's a measurement. If you deep inside and you say,
mm,
not really, I still find them very draining. I find them so
mm,
annoying sometimes, and when I get the chance, I don't want to be near them. I rather run away from them. Then you can't go further. You need to stop again and ask yourself, do you want to be a
mm,
leader? Because being a leader means wanting to influence someone towards positive change and growth, right?
mm,
Influencing them towards goodness, towards greatness. So, do you value people? And there are these three questions that people ask of leaders. Yeah, people are wondering of leaders. So, I just want to leave this with all of you to check yourself, the part where within yourself, right? They are wondering, do you care for me? Do you care for me? Can I trust you? Can you help me? Do you care for
wow.
me? Can I trust you? Can you help me? So you just have it in your heart, and every day you wake up and you ask this. If people would ask me this, my people would ask me this, can I say yes, yes, and yes? Because that's
Mm,
our journey. That's our journey as
mm,
leaders to come to terms with, am I there yet? Am I there yet? Am I growing there? So every day
mm,
when you reflect on this, and then you can see maybe the first 2 weeks you were like, no, 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 no. The answers were no, no, no. But then after that, the answer became yes, no, no. And then after
mm,
another 1 month became yes, yes, no, not yet. And then as you grow, that's a measurement tool. You need to be honest
mm,
with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself. Because I really see some honest leaders in position, right? And I asked them, do you like people? They said, no, Anita, I really don't. And then I said, you didn't know what you were in for, right? When you took up the promotions, after promotions, he said, yeah. And we laugh about it because it's true. It's true. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. Nobody said,
yeah,
in the contract, right? Nobody said you got to love people, you got to value people, you got to spend
yeah,
time with people. They never said that, right?
yeah.
And another way to measure, are people opening up to you? Are they opening up?
Mm,
Do they feel safe? Like last time, they wouldn't come and tell you if they made a mistake. They wouldn't come and
mm,
ask you for guidance. But then, as you grow, people begin to come and ask you for guidance. They bring down their guard. We talk a lot about psychological safety. I mean, I did
mm,
a post, I think a few weeks ago. I can't remember. It's on my LinkedIn post. I talked about what it is and what it's not. What
mm,
is not. I mean, go and check it out. But there's so many things you can measure with. And do they go the extra mile? When you ask them, can you help me, do they go the extra mile, or do they do the bare minimum and then run off and say, I'm sorry, I have an
mm,
appointment, I'm sorry, I can't stay back, I'm sorry, I can't do more than this because there's an urgent request? Or do they go the extra mile? Because many times employees go the extra mile for the leader they report to, not really for the
mm,
organization, right? I mean, they're doing
mm,
it for you. So do you find that your people are being more willing, they're responding to you much better than they did before because they feel valued, right? They're not doing it
mm,
out of fear or compulsion. They're doing it for the right reason, because they feel inspired, they feel like they want to respect you and honor you and give you back because you have invested in them in some way.
mm,
And another easy way, this is an easy way, just one day look at your team and see how they look like. Do they look like dead ducks? Do they look like their energy is depleted? Or do they look very cheery? And now you probably can't go to the office. Maybe some of you are in the office, but some can't. So what you need to do, have meetings where you get everybody to turn on the camera and look at them. Do they look like they are so tired and frustrated with life and the workload? Or are they there smiling and happy to see you? Even if it's on a virtual camera on meeting, are they demonstrating optimism? You can see. It doesn't take a genius to
mm,
spot it. When you give a problem, when you bring a
mm,
problem, you see them, their eyes light up and say, boss, I have an idea. And another one says, but what about this? Maybe we can combine both of ideas and come up with something better. See the
mm,
enthusiasm, the morale. These are clear signs that you are on the right track. And you always need to ask yourself, am I happy being a leader? Because one leader just recently in one of our coaching sessions, she told me this. She said, Anita, now I'm so much happier than I was before. And because I'm
wow.
happier, I can connect better with people and it's easier. It's easier.
Mm,
So when you adjust the being, the doing becomes easier. So these are some signs, within yourself. Choose, do you want to be a leader? Ask the three questions, in your mind. When imagine them asking you, do you care for me? Can I trust you? Can you help me? Can you start saying yes, 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 or you're not there yet?
mm,
I just
mm,
use that as a
mm,
measurement, and then whether they go the extra
yeah.
mile, whether they're opening up to you, and whether they're demonstrating optimism and enthusiasm and high morale in the way they work for you. This could be
True.
some ways you could measure it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. They could be, and now what I again see, what we are shifting towards, or another element that got added to our conversation. Till now, the driver was majorly self awareness, self awareness, self awareness. Now, another driver that gets added is social awareness, of being aware of your environment, of being
Yes.
observant of your people around, their behaviors,
Yes.
their actions, their reactions, their moods,
Right.
and gauging that as feedback. And another thing that you said is that talk to your people. It's important that you talk to your
Yes.
people, so that they open up, and before they open up, it's important as a leader for you to open up. If
Yes.
they feel that you feel safe around them, is when they will feel safe around you, right? That's where the question of care, trust, and help comes into picture, that
Yes. And
uh,
vulnerability, right? Vulnerability
vulnerability,
as well.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a huge challenge, right? So a lot of people see vulnerability as a weakness, saying that
Yeah.
how can I be myself in front of them, they won't look up to me
Right.
anymore, they won't respect with me anymore. But it's important to understand that people connect with people, they will understand you, right? So connect with them as person. We're not asking you to open up your entire life and share your whole life history with them, but be open to them that you're also on a journey of growth, you're looking to become a better
Yes.
leader. So ask them, what can you do that they feel cared, what can you do to
Right.
help them, what can you do so that they feel trust me, they look at me as somebody who's trustworthy. So I think
Right.
that bond needs to be built with your team. And what you said, what I can relate to so much as a team member and as a leader, that your people wouldn't want to let you down. That's a feeling that they should have, that they work for you. They see pride in you getting applauded, for you getting that the feeling of importance and presence being felt, because they feel proud that I work for Anita, or I work for Prashant, or I work for A, B, or C, because I am part of their team, they feel I have contributed. And then you give that back, and you appreciate them, you value them, you recognize them, so that it's both ways. So a very powerful point of social awareness also that you brought into picture. So it needs to be a
Yeah.
combination of you knowing a lot about yourself and your journey, and also being observant enough of
Yes.
journey of your people, by observing, by talking, by reading
Yes.
different signs that come your way. So great thought,
Absolutely.
Anita. Anything that you would like to add to this? Any last comments? Did I miss anything?
No, you captured it excellently well, Prashant. I love the way you
Great.
capture everything.
Did I
Yeah.
exceed excellence?
Yes, you did. That's why I agreed to be on the show because of you, right?
Great, great, super. So status quo is not the way to go, even for me.
No.
So I'm also challenging that, and I'm sure audiences would also do that, because there's so much learning that we had today. I know we have been here for almost 1.5 hours, and a lot of you would not have probably seen it, the whole thing online. Some of you joined in the beginning, some of you joining now, some of you have left midway. So whoever is watching it live right now, thank you so much for that. And whoever has not been there now and had seen the recording, thank you to you as well. But this conversation was so valuable. We were talking about such deep concepts that I did not want to break it just in interest of time. So please go back and listen to our conversation. There is a lot of value. If you're somebody who wants to become a leader, if you're somebody who's authentic in that journey, if you're somebody who's open to self-reflection, challenging yourself, challenging the status quo, then this conversation is definitely for you. So, on that thought, Anita, we'll just give one quick minute to a couple of comments here, and then we will close the show. Sujit replied to your answer earlier that you said for the millennials. He said, "Well summed up. Grow the leader within you. Knower versus learner. It has to become a part of your being by applying the concepts and internalizing them."
Yes.
Mona Lisa says sometimes, especially young leaders, in order to ensure free workspace, loosen too much, and the employees exploit this situation. How to set benchmark, yardstick, or boundaries between liberal leadership and weakness. So, Anita, I'm making a commitment on behalf of you and me both, that after this show, today or tomorrow, we'll get back to the comments. We will read all the questions and we will respond to that. And I've already spoken to Anita about this and taken her permission. You can reach out to us personally, connect with us on LinkedIn, DM us personally with the questions that you have. We'll be more than happy to respond to you and have a conversation about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, sorry, Mona Lisa could not take that question in the interest of time. But again, Sujit says, fantastic conversation. Prashant and Anita, a lot of learning, instructing people versus influencing people for a positive change. Mosmi Paul says, Anita, thank you so much for explaining beautifully. correcting and connection relationship. That was wonderful. The difference between connection and correction. Kuldeep says Prashant and Anita, really meaningful conversation about leadership. Great. So I think I could stick to my commitment. One commitment that I broke today was of time. We have exceeded time by like 50%. But you have to win some, you have to lose some to win some. So I think that's what I lost. But I was so happy that I could engage with audiences today. I realized what I was missing, how disrespectful I was being to people by not doing that. And there is so much value that's coming through those questions and comments, which I have missed not doing properly in the last 6 to 7 episodes. So I'm glad that I could do that, and I work on my timing as well. And
Wow.
thank you, Anita, for your patience, for being in this journey with me. I know that it's late in the evening there already, and you're still with us. It's dinner time. I'm sure your stomach is already growling,
No, I'm
and
very full because I'm
you
with
are.
someone like you. So I'm very satisfied. Remember, my passion is people. So I can just sit here and enjoy
Yes.
listening to you as well.
Thank you. That's wonderful, Anita, and thank you so much for all your time, everything that you shared. Very deep reflections. I will also go back to this conversation and listen to it. A lot of takeaways, a lot of points to be made a note of. It's important that we make those notes in this conversation because it's coming from a trainer, speaker, coach who's been doing this for more than 2 decades. And again, as I told you, you have the permission to reach out to us, DM us, and ask whatever you want to and share your comments and feedback. And as always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate whatever feedback you're giving me. Thank you so much for that love. And I'll see you next Saturday with another amazing guest. Take care and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Anita. You too take
Thank you,
care and have a
Prashant.
wonderful weekend.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye bye. Take care.